What's going on, my lovely people? I'm System Check 66 and welcome to the channel, and we're going to be talking about the fact that Leon could possibly be in Resident Evil Requiem, or he might not be. So a couple of days ago, producer Masato Kumazawa was asked in an interview if there would be any returning characters in Resident Evil Requiem, seeing as it's going back to Raccoon City as well. And he said, I would say that yes, there are going to be some characters from the past series to come in, which is cool, it's exciting, but don't over-expect or hype it. So Kumazawa says, we can't promise you anything about that, but the only thing I can say is that there will be characters that have been involved in the Raccoon City incident, and they'll be involved in the game. When it comes to Leon being in the game, Kumazawa and the rest of the team also said that he's absolutely not going to be the protagonist of the next series, meaning Requiem, and that he's just too cool to be scared. So he's like an overpowered character at this point. And I don't think that's what the team who are involved in Requiem are going for. They don't want a character that's overpowered, you know, like in Resident Evil 4 or Village or, you know, Resident Evil 5, 6. They want a vulnerable character. And they found that in Grace. You know, they want someone that's going to be scared, is new to everything, because she potentially is new to everything. She might have a little bit of knowledge, kind of, but at the same time, she's pretty green. And over the course of the game, you're going to grow with this character. That's what they want. Like, they even said that whereas Ethan was like a blank slate, he was basically you projecting yourself into the game. With Grace, it's going to be an actual character, you know, and you can relate and sympathise with this character as you're going through Requiem. Now, I'm going to read through the entire interview just because you guys might not have read it, you might not have watched any videos that cover it, and I find it interesting. Obviously, we're going to get more of an understanding of Requiem as a game, and also stuff that Kumazawa, you know, has expressed and explained in the interview and talked about in the interview. So let's begin. So this is from Well Played's interview with Masato, and they start off by asking, Resident Evil Requiem sees the series return to Raccoon City for the first time since Resident Evil 3. What made the team decide to return to the city where it all started almost 30 years ago? Kumazawa says, when you compare it to the last main entries, Resident Evil 7 and also Village, it went far away from Raccoon City and Umbrella. By portraying these outskirts, like the country or the village and so on, I believe that going back to Raccoon City and back to the main part of the story, it's best for the fans. They will probably enjoy the story on what happened and uncover further. Well Played then asks, recent Resident Evil titles have utilised a stalker enemy. With Requiem, how difficult has it been finding the right balance with this mechanic to make sure players don't get frustrated, seeing as it's something they've experienced in previous games? Have you ever considered having an option to disable the mechanic? Kazama replies, I understand how there are a lot of opinions surrounding the stalker, but we are giving a survival horror experience. We did learn from the past on how to balance it. We're trying not to make it a main part. It's like a small part of the game. The most important thing is that because this game is new, we wanted to focus more on trying to scare the player in many different ways, providing that players can be involved in many different kinds of situations. We're just trying to cover a whole lot of scenarios to make sure the players can get scared and experience the horror. Well Played then asked him, with Grace being the daughter of Alyssa Ashcroft from Resident Evil Outbreak, can we expect more characters from Outbreak to show up in Requiem? Kurosawa says, I would say that yes, there are going to be some characters from the past series to come in, but don't over-expect or hype it. We can't promise you anything about that, but the only thing I can say is that there will be characters that have been involved in the Raccoon City incident involved in the game. He's then asked, Resident Evil is a series with many beloved characters. Do you think people will take to Grace quicker than Ethan Winters because of her existing connections to the Resident Evil universe? Kurosawa says, yes, so I'm hoping that players will definitely get used to Grace more when you compare her to Ethan Winters when they're playing the game. Ethan did more of a job of being the player's camera than anything, and we did this very consciously in the development of that game. Whereas in comparison with Grace, we focus more on her having character outside of that. We wanted to make sure that we show that by what kind of words she says, actions she does, or how she acts when she's surprised. The next question asks, Resident Evil Village had the Duke act as the game's merchant. Will Requiem have a merchant character? If so, will they be a returning character or a new one? Kurosawa says, in this game, there's no merchant character, which I'm actually happy about, to be honest, but we'll go over that in a little bit. He's then asked, one of my favourite parts of Resident Evil is the save room music. Same with me. How much work goes into designing these rooms and their musical themes? So Kurosawa says, yes, like the past, we will have a safe room music that's going to be there. I didn't hear it exactly from the sound team, but what I can say is that we made sure that the song will sound fresh. It will make the players feel refreshed. Sorry I didn't hear it from the sound team, but I'd like to hear it from the sound team as well. So that's a bit of a strange translation, but he's basically saying I haven't heard it yet, but once I get the chance, I'm sure it'll be good. Now, I like the safe room music in Resident Evil 7. I thought it was really good. So safe room music, you can't go wrong. Like, it's always been good. My favourite being Dead Aim's safe room music. That's iconic. I've used that in a lot of my videos, but you know, all the others are great as well. But I have a bit of a love for the original games. Well, actually, the remix of the save room theme, and also the remix in the Resident Evil 2 remake of the save room theme as well. So, but I love them all. They've all been stellar. The last question that Kurosawa has asked is, with Requiem including characters from Outbreak, could we ever see Capcom revisit Outbreak or that style of game? He says, unfortunately at the moment we don't have any plans of making games like those, but maybe if there are lots of users' needs, or there's a need from the gamers, or they want more like Outbreak, then maybe yes. I personally would like Outbreak, and maybe eventually down the road I would like to make one. But at the moment, no. So, a bit disappointing to Outbreak fans, including myself, but yeah. You know, I'm looking forward to Requiem, so we've got that coming. In saying that, you don't need to play Resident Evil Outbreak to enjoy Resident Evil Requiem. In fact, the only knowledge that you'll need is that the main character, Grace Ashcroft, is the daughter of Alyssa Ashcroft, who featured in Outbreak. I just want to make that clear. So that's the end of the interview. Obviously, they say thank you for your time. And the interview was conducted with a translator. Some answers have been edited for readability. So obviously, even reading through that, there was some translation errors. Only a few, like small amount, but everybody got the gist of kind of what's going on with Requiem up to this point. So covering everything, I will say that Leon Kennedy could be in the game. I've never disputed that he wouldn't be in the game. I just knew that he wouldn't be the main protagonist, definitely. I don't know whether they're going to let you play as some of these characters. I doubt it, I really do doubt it, because it looks like they're focusing more on the horror aspect, and Grace Ashcroft is a great vessel for that, you know, a great character to sort of get that horror focus across to the player. So I don't think we're going to be playing as Chris Redfield or Gung Ho Leon S. Kennedy, you know, Jill Valentine, all the rest of them. But I will say that they could easily bring back like Billy Cohen, because people have wanted Billy Cohen to come back, or Carlos Oliveira. So we might be able to play as those characters. I don't know, like, but even then, they've still gone through the Raccoon City incident, or at least the training facility incident for Billy, and then the Raccoon City incident for Carlos. So it's like they're still going to be quite hardened, you know. I mean, you know, they might be in it, they might not. He's basically said like a couple of returning characters are going to come back and make a return. So it could be anyone up to this point, to be honest. It could be some of the cast from Outbreak. It could be Leon S. Kennedy and Chris Redfield. It could be Jill Valentine, Rebecca Chambers. It could be anybody, you know, or they might all be in the game. We just don't know up to this point. But I will say that, yeah, I agree with these guys. I don't, like, there's been a lot of this kind of fanboying and fangirling over Leon. And, you know, he's a great character. He's a classic Resident Evil character. I do like the character. It's not like I hate the character or anything like that. My favourite being Jill. We've had him in games. You know, we need a new perspective. We don't need this gung-ho action hero character if the game's not a gung-ho action experience. Resident Evil 4 has its place. Resident Evil 5 has its place. Village has its place. And then you have the horror Resident Evils, Resident Evil 7, you know, I'm talking about newer Resident Evil titles, Resident Evil 2 Remake, like, we are getting another horror-focused Resident Evil, and there will be action, because there's always been action in a Resident Evil game, like, that's just a fact, you know, it's just how they handle the action, game to game, you know, and as the series has progressed, it's gone on the action route, and then it's come back to horror, survival horror, and then it's gone back to the action, and then back to survival horror, so it flip-flops a lot. I think maybe there's going to be some action in this, but I think their focus is more on horror. When it comes to the merchant character not being in the game, I'm actually happy about that. I like that. I think that the Duke from Resident Evil Village was stupid, like I didn't understand any of his motivations for helping Ethan, and why he was there in the first place. The little Easter eggs, like he was friends with the other merchant from Resident Evil 4. It was just stupid, it was hokey, cheesy, and I didn't really vibe with that character. Like, he was just super out of place. I understand that there's been theories that he was like one of the lords and he was just helping Ethan to get back at the other lords and blah 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 blah. But when you look at it like visually, he was just this fat dude that sold you stuff, you know, and was able to appear in the most random of places. Like, I know his little carriage, you know, his horse and carriage would rock up like in the back of the castle or side route to the side of the castle, and he'd just stick himself in there. I understand all that. I'm not like stupid. I worked that out when I was playing the game, but I just didn't like the character, and I just didn't vibe with it at the end of the day. So I'm happy that they're not having another merchant sort of character in this game, this particular game. Maybe in the future you guys will get a merchant. Hopefully he's better than the Duke. My personal opinion. Nothing beats the merchant for Resident Evil 4 remake, and yeah, he was a good implementation within that game. But would I have wanted to see a merchant character in Resident Evil 7? Would it have ruined the experience? Yes, it would have. It just depends on what game and sort of like the style, the aesthetic and the vibe that they're going for. And if they're going for a survival horror type experience with this, then yeah, just not going to make any sense. So I'm happy about that. I'm glad they don't have a merchant character. So is Leon in this game? That's the main question, right? That's what everybody wants to know, and we're gonna have to wait until the game releases, unless a trailer pops up. Some people have said that Leon is actually the character in the trailer that's walking through these city streets. Could be. I'm not disputing that. No one's disputing the fact he could be in this game. We're just getting sick and tired of sort of like, you know, these channels posting up fake leaks. And the development team, you know, the producer, the director, they've both said like the recent leaks of Leon with an eye patch and all this other stuff, they're fake. You know, they're fake leaks. A lot of the leaks that have been covered are fake. And that's why I'm saying, can you not overhype it? Like, because it's getting a bit ridiculous. Like, Resident Evil's becoming known for just basically fake leaks and fake leakers. That's what it's becoming known for at this point in time. Now, obviously fans and people that are really stuck with the series and been there from the beginning, and we kind of understand the lore and the progression the series takes, we know that some of this is bullshit. Like, we can call it out. Like, Leon with an eye patch just doesn't work. I can already tell you right now, when I saw that, I was like, there's no way Capcom would give him a goofy looking eye patch. It wouldn't happen. So, because I know the character, and I know how Capcom treat the character, and that's just it. It's like, when fake leaks come out like that, you go, nah, that's not it, and that's not the one. And so they're just trying to tell you, like, don't believe these fake leaks and you know, have all this hype, like this fake hype surrounding the game, where Leon's going to be like playable for half the game, and then Grace has only got a little bit in the beginning, and then maybe she comes back at the end. Oh, that's rubbish. Like, to me, the way that they're progressing with the game is they want it to be more survival horror, more scary, you know, with like minimal stalker enemies and no merchant, and just having these characters that come in from the series and maybe help Grace, or she meets them, you know, they're sort of NPC style characters. And that's how I think they're moving forward with this game, and that's what they've wanted for this game. This particular Resident Evil experience is going to be a survival horror experience. And like he said, like Kurosawa said, having Leon or having Chris or even Jill in this game, Rebecca Chambers, Barry Burton, as a protagonist that you play as, it's not going to work, because they're going to be overpowered. They're going to know how to deal with this threat easily, or fairly easily, and it's going to take away that fear and that dread from the player. So I think that's the direction that they've moved in, that they've wanted to move in, because of Resident Evil 7, because of Revelations 1. You know, I think that the Nakanishi, the game's director, I think that he has wanted to create a survival horror experience, and seeing as he made those other two games, he done pretty good jobs with those two games. You know, yeah, Revelations had a little bit of action here and there, but it's still, you could tell it was more in the survival horror direction as opposed to the action horror direction. And 7 was just stripped back, you know, and that was like a survival horror experience. And I think that's what he's going for with Requiem. And yeah, it's going to have a bit of action here and there, because, you know, it's further in the timeline. It's Resident Evil 9, it's going back to Raccoon City. We're going to have some bombastic moments, you know, some big epic moments. but I don't think it's going to bog the game down. I think they're going to handle it just right, because I have faith in Nakanishi and the team that are handling this, because they worked on 7, he's worked on 7, and he's worked on Revelations 1, and I really like those games. No one can tell me that you weren't shitting yourself during the comms officer reveal and boss fight in Revelations 1, and also pretty much the basement level of Resident Evil 7, and the molded coming out of walls and stuff. There were some scary moments in Resident Evil 7, definitely. So he's got the chops. I trust in him, and I trust in the team. I wasn't the biggest fan of Resident Evil Village. I need to go back and play it again, and I don't know. There's some things that I like about that game. I do like the gameplay. I do enjoy it, gameplay wise, and also I like the location. You know, aesthetically, it's quite beautiful. But then there's a whole bunch of things that I dislike. You know, definitely, especially being a sequel to 7, it just was super disappointing. That's why when I heard that Nakanishi was going to be involved, I was happy. You know, I was positive with it, and I think him and his team can pull it off. I really do, and I think they can do that without slapping Leon into the game as a main protagonist. He can be in the game as like an NPC character or someone that helps Grace, but you know, you don't need these legacy characters to drive the plot and the game sort of forward. Like, we don't need them to be the main protagonist. We can have this new protagonist, and I like Grace as a character. I think Grace is cool. She's Alyssa's daughter, someone that has connections to Raccoon City. She's going back to Raccoon City. Like, this is all stuff that, you know, that I'm vibing with. I like her as a character already. I think it's interesting she works for the FBI, but she's not a field agent, and this is maybe going to be one of her sort of first field assignments, or serious, proper field assignments. Maybe the other ones have just been minor. So yeah, I think she's a cool character. I'm interested. They did ask as well, like, during another interview, they said something to Kurosawa. They were asking him how big Raccoon City is going to be, and also as the game's main location, you know, how difficult was it to go back to the city, etc., etc. And he actually stopped them and said, it's not the only location, or something to that effect. He said, yeah, that's not the only location. You've seen the other location within the trailers, I think, meaning that town, you know, where the hotel is. So yeah, it's not going to be the only location, which is interesting. And apparently there's been a leak about the game's length and how long the game is, and it's around Resident Evil 4's length, so we can expect a big game, and they could pop at least 3 main locations with small little hub worlds within it. So the hospital, the Raccoon City Hospital that we go to being one of them, the small town with the hotel being another one. So yeah, it's interesting. Like, Raccoon City is not the only place we're going to visit in Requiem. Whether he means that Raccoon City is just one big hub that houses small little locations, which obviously it would, and then the town has like the hotel. I'm guessing the hotel's in the town, because they kind of link within the trailers. They're sort of linked together, with the town housing like the hotel, and then Raccoon City obviously housing the hospital because it's got the umbrella logo and stuff on it. But yeah, I could be completely wrong. Who knows? So yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, he had to stop them there and say, actually, there's a few more locations other than Raccoon City. And I think he means in terms of like a hub world that then houses all these little locations within it. That's what I think he means. So I think that's about it. We're all up to date in terms of news and stuff that was covering Resident Evil Requiem. The interview was quite an eye-opener, definitely, when Kurosawa said about returning characters that were involved in the Raccoon City sort of outbreak. I mean, there's so many characters, there's such a huge list that it could literally be any number of characters that are returning. So until we actually play through the game comes out, I don't think we're going to know the full extent of who those characters are for now. Could be wrong though, they might reveal them in a new trailer, but I'm pretty much covering any concrete information and news regarding this game. I'm definitely looking forward to the next trailer for the game, and I think that will be the last trailer. They've kept this game quite close to their chests, you know, they've kind of hidden it from the public, and I think that's great. I love that, you know, it's bringing back that mystery to Resident Evil, so I'm all for that. But yeah, that's it from me. I'm out of here. So until next time, I've been System Check 66. Have a good rest of your week, and I'll see you again next time.